Hello, welcome to Am Yisrael Thrive. I'm your host, Shana Natanya, with
Jen Hayes, and this is where thriving is our resistance. How are you doing, Shana?
I'm great this week. It's Olympic week, isn't it?
It is. Shana, I'm not seeing you on your live on Instagram at the moment.
Oh, no, we have to figure what is going on with our... Oh, there we are. Now, can you see us?
Why is your live not popping up for me?
That is so strange.
That is very strange right now. Hold on. I'm going to go to your account. That's so strange. This has never happened before.
And I had a bunch of people did come on there as well, too.
Okay. Now it says I should have joined. Okay. Now we're good.
You on there? We're good?
You see me now.
You see me too? Am I real?
See me both? Okay. Awesome. Now I'm on there.
All right. Perfect. People can see us both? All right. Awesome. Yeah. So Phyllis says she can see us. We're good.
All right. So we haven't been on the past week. We were not on last week. So we have a couple weeks in between to talk about some of our roses and thorns.
Yes, but you had a good, the reason though was not for anything bad. I want to clarify that. You were having a nice family event. So how did that go?
It went very well. One of my cousins just turned 60. So we just had a little family get together last week. So it was really nice. But one of my roses this week is the Olympics. If anyone knows me, I love especially the Winter Olympics. I'm such a huge figure skating fan, aficionado. So the rose the past 2 weeks has been watching the Olympics, seeing the quad god Ilya Malinin win the team event gold. I know, unfortunately, he did not skate his best in his final, but like he's still so young and he can come back in 4 years. And I think a lot of people forget that Nathan Chan also had a disappointing short program in the Olympics, and he didn't win an individual medal, but he came back and won in the next 4 years. So there's hope for that. Also really enjoyed, I love figure skating. So seeing Maria from Israel skate, she was absolutely beautiful. Her short program was divine. She had no mistakes. She landed every jump. Her spins were on point. I mean, just the perfection. And I was really, really excited that she made it to the final program. She made it into that group of ladies and she performed. And she should be really proud of herself. I think she did an amazing job skating, and she should be really proud for Team Israel. So watching that.
Did she take home any of the medals?
No, unfortunately, Israel did not win any medals in the skating department. Usually I have to say Israel doesn't have a lot when it comes to figure skating. There's been skaters here and there every few years, but I would love to see a bigger turnout in figure skating maybe in the next couple of years with Team Israel. So I'm looking forward to that.
One of the things I really appreciated about you, since I don't watch TV and I don't even have cable, I feel very disconnected from the rest of the world, is you've been sending me updates from the Olympics. And so I feel connected to the world via you, Jen, I have to say. So thank you for that. And you've been reminding me that Jewish Olympians, even if they're not from Israel, from all over the world, have been taking medals home, right?
Yes. And someone just mentioned in the comment, Wendy Birch, a Jewish brother, hit the winning goal in the men's hockey today, which has just happened. This is breaking news. In overtime, Jack Hughes scored the winning goal. And after, I want to say 47 years? No. When's the last? 1980. How many years ago? This is why
it's like 40 years, like 40 plus. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a math teacher. So this is why. That the Olympic gold medal for men's hockey was won by an American team, which is incredible. So I'm really happy for that outcome. And again, like it just shows that Jews are just as capable as being athletic as any other group or ethnicity or nationality. So that has been such a rose. quickly talking about thorns. There's so many thorns to talk about. And I have to admit, and I know Shane and I were talking about this earlier, I'm sure a lot of us are feeling burnt out. There are so many things I want to respond to. There are so many things I'm angry about. And I just honestly just don't have the energy to vent a lot today, because at the end of the day, I just feel like we're screaming into the void and I'm talking to a wall. Only really,
Give me both, sister.
yeah, it feels like only us really care about these things that are going on.
Yeah.
I think,
And that's why, and I will agree with you on that. And that's why I've just decided, like, I had a switch like maybe a month ago with, I'm like, oh, like, why am I just focusing so much of my energy and I feel so angry all the time? And I realized that which I am looking for, it was hateful to me. So why do I keep bathing myself in all this hatred? And then I started asking myself, what is it that would bring me joy? What sparks joy? And so I just started leaning into all the things that spark joy, you know?
I think that's the best mindset. And I think even I know this isn't the Olympics, but like the All-Star game just, happened recently. We had Denny, the first Israeli, American player. Again, focusing on the joys is really important. And I will admit, I can get sucked down by the mire of like just the anger, and
it's not just you, it's most people. It's a psychological response. We get dopamine from it.
Exactly. And I think this is why our show is so important, is that thriving is where our resistance comes in. They want us to have so much anxiety. They want us to be uncomfortable. They want us to be sad. They want us to be burnt out. But we have to know you're not going to take the joy away from us. So I'm going to follow your advice.
And for me, I love being happy, tanned, well moisturized, well fed, well hydrated, and let them stew in their little angry, incel world. I don't got to be a part of it. The most powerful thing I've discovered is the block button. You don't I literally have banished you from my world now. You do not even exist to me. Queen behavior,
Exactly. I totally agree. Gina, what about you? What's your rose or your thorn for these past?
No words. Well, my rose has been, I have really been, I'm actually starting a new project. I'm going to be starting this is one of the things I've been focusing on is, I love archaeology, and I am starting a new YouTube channel that is devoted. It's going to be called Crossroads of Civilizations. And it's going to be me going to different places to investigate different archaeological places. Since I'm moving to Israel, I figure I'm going to be so close to all these different, major world history centers, and I'd love to explore them and then put that out there for everyone else to see that can't get there.
I think that would be fantastic. I think that's amazing. And I know you also have other projects. I mean, I'm very curious about your babushka, if I'm saying, Ask Babushka, which I think is a great idea that you have. And then you have that other coaching project as well.
Yes, I have so many ideas for things to do. I just can't control all of them, but yes. And so for my thorn, because I haven't really been like focusing on the negative, I will say, I don't even know that I have a thorn. Like the biggest thorn for me was I have a really nice vase this week and I tried putting flowers in it and all the water came out. So I'm like, shit, now I have to get rid of my awesome vase. So that's my thorn.
Actually, we do have a comment from Phyllis saying that you can actually join a dig in Israel, which I think that's something you should explore.
I will be looking into that.
You have to. Do you know that is insanely cool to be able to go on an archaeological dig in the Holy Land.
Can you imagine literally walking in the same steps thousands of years ago that our ancient ancestors, the Israelites, walked?
I was just looking at my pictures from my birthright trip because that was 20 years ago, and I'm just like aghast at like I walked like Masada, being at Masada, knowing that the Jews chose to just jump off and just die themselves and by the sword of the Romans, and like you're standing on the exact same place. Goosebumps. just like goosebumps. And then you just feel that like resiliency that like, guess what? We're here. Could you imagine those, like our ancestors imagining that in the year like 2000 and something, our ancestors are still here standing.
Exactly.
It's like
more exactly. And we're standing up to oppression the same way we always have been for thousands of years, because we're tough Jews. That's why.
Exactly. Someone also said that, yep, they've done that. Get it done with joy. I'm not sure if she means I've done that, like going to Israel or being on the dig, but I would love to find out more. And Phyllis said Masada at sunrise is also a beautiful thing.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I've heard so much about Masada at sunrise.
Did you ever do Birthright?
I never did Birthright. I was really, I know, and I wanted to back then, and I remember I kept telling myself, back in my 20s, I was already married I was 22 years old, and I was the main breadwinner of the house. And so I was like grinding so much back then that I just couldn't take the time off to actually go to Israel on my own.
Well,
but now I'm moving there.
Get It Done with Joy says she's done digs, so you need to talk with her about her experiences, because that seems like it'd be really just like the nerd in me, the historian nerd in me is like, oh my god, that's so cool. So you'll definitely have to connect and do it now.
Oh yeah, Joy, I will definitely be DMing you about this, so look out for that.
Well, I am really excited to bring on our guest. Shayna, you would like to do the honors of bringing him on?
Yes. We have a very exciting guest today. We have David Wiseman from Follow Team Israel here to comment about all the Jewish world of the Olympics that we have on today. So let's go ahead and bring our guest on. Welcome, David. Hi.
Hey, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for
coming. No problem. Thank you for joining us.
I guess our first question is just to get our audience to know more about you is like, how did you start your account, and like what made you decide to really highlight Jewish Israeli athletes?
So just to give you some background, I'm originally from Sydney, Australia, and now live in Jerusalem. I've always had a great love of sport, and growing up in Australia, we're sort of exposed to like basically every sport in the world. And you'll actually, I don't know if you saw this, but Australia actually won, I think, 3 gold medals in at the games, and that sort of highlights our diversity. Even though we're not sort of like a winter sports country, we're still doing quite well. So anyhow, it was the year of 2012, just before the London Olympics, and I was speaking to a friend about how, we didn't really know much about the Israeli team going to London. And it was like, well, why don't we create a page that's sort of going to be devoted to sort of posting about them, because the reality is that, most of the sports of the Olympics, people don't really care about when it's not the Olympics: archery, fencing, pole vault, et cetera, right? We're very much geared now with like basketball and soccer and all of that. So basically every country is the same, right? So Israel isn't any different in that situation. And then got to the point sort of after the Olympics where I was like, okay, well, why can't we share about it all the time, right? So we're not discriminating about the sport. We're not discriminating about the gender. We're not discriminating about the age, even the ability. And I just want to stress also that it's not mutually exclusive Israeli Jewish. It's either or, which means that if we have Israeli Christian athletes, Israeli Arab, Israeli Druze, or if we've got athletes who are Jewish from all over the world, we're also happy to share about them and really inspire people and let people know.
That's a really good point. I'm sorry to cut you off for a second, but I just want to comment on this. I thank you actually for making that distinction, that Israelis are not just Jews. They come in a wide variety, and us Jews, we see them as being equally Israeli and as part of our team, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that they're unbelievably proud to represent Israel. Like, for them, it's like a dream come true. And so it's actually quite interesting because I said we started at 2012, And at the end of 2017, I remember that the Facebook page only had 5,000 followers. And I was like, oh, what's with this? This is like quite pathetic. And I remember looking at the stats for 2017 and with the amount of followers that came on, less the amount of followers that left, the net growth for 2017 was 100. And I was like, well, what's happening here? But little did I know, 6 weeks later, we'd have our first piece of viral content. So what was that?
Was?
I mean,
which
it was actually, and this is interesting, the 2018 Winter Olympics. And so that's also always why the Winter Olympics is going to have a very special place. So we had posted a video, and it's interesting because this was actually one video that wasn't removed by the IOC. They're actually like crazy when it comes to that. Anyhow, this video of this Israeli, even though the page had 5,000 or whatever followers, was liked 5,500 times. And I said that our first 5,000 followers took 5 years. Our second 5,000 followers took 2 days. And basically at that point, we were on our way, right? And so we grew on the map, and and that's basically what something I speak about to all content creators. Like, you just, if you're passionate about what you do it because you love it, and you just want to tell anyone. You don't care who you're telling to. You're like, I want to tell. And the interesting thing about our posts is that also we get, like, we've got a lot of followers, but also the engagement is very high, and particularly shares, because what happens is that we share these incredible stories that they're not hearing from anywhere else. And then they have that same impetus to share it with their network, to be like, you won't believe, like, who just won this in Taekwondo, or who just won this in archery. And basically they want to let their people know. And this wasn't by design. And, it's interesting when you create something in terms of storytelling, that if it's truly an organic project, you never really know where it's going to head out to. You can't, and I think this is part of the problem when people try and do things. They it's mechanical, and they try and reverse engineer it, right? So what's my point? Is that this was never designed to be some Hasbara vehicle. But in essence, that's what it became, because we were like sharing a continual source of these incredible stories about athletes. And the thing is also interesting is that when it comes to the media and the way they report about sport, it's incredibly like personality driven, right? So you would think that like Tom Brady was the only player on the Patriots, or like Derek Jeter was the only player on the Yankees, or if it's like LeBron, right? Because they're only
That's what sells. Let's be real,
right?
But
it's chicken and the egg, though, right? Because they're just reporting on the same names over and over and over again. You don't really know who else is on the team, and it's the same thing. But the thing is, when we're sharing these stories of these anonymous people, that isn't a bug. That's the feature, right? Because we're saying we're going to surprise you with someone you didn't know, and it's going to put a smile on your face. And it's also very important for me to have like always diversity of the sport, of the story, of the athlete. I never wanted to get, unless it's like, and I just want to stress that like we're sort of more focused on the stories of the athletes than sort of seeing ourselves as like the ESPN of Jewish sports, right? If someone wants to get the score in the game, like they can get that from wherever they can want that on the internet. Now, that's not our job, right? Our job is the stories of the athletes, right? So unless it's, but except for the Summer Olympics, like the Summer Olympics sometimes will like cover in real time. Like we have a swimmer who's about to go, the swimmer came 20th, great.
Is there a moment in sports, and especially the Olympics, that really just sticks in your mind that was like just bone chilling for you, that gets you excited?
So that's actually an interesting question, because I'm Shomer Shabbat, and in the last 2 Olympics, many of our medals have actually been won on Shabbat. And so I haven't been posting that, or I've missed them. That's not what I have the issue with, but I'm just saying that at Tokyo, which was actually in 2021 instead of 2020 because of COVID, So Lanoy Ashram, the gymnast, won this gold medal in like incredibly controversial circumstances, not because of anything that she did, but because of what was happening with the Russians. And it was very interesting with the Skategate that we experienced in Milan with the French couple beating the American couple. That, you know, ice skating and gymnastics are very similar in that regard, in that when the scoring's subjective, anything can really happen. But thankfully there, like, she didn't win. Sorry, the Russian didn't win, and Lanoy won, which was actually the first time in the history of that event that Russia didn't win gold. And it was actually, she was competing against these twin Russian sisters. So it wasn't like just one, but she had to take on two. And the second sister actually did even worse, that she fell out to fourth. So that was huge for many reasons. And, you know, I would also say, like, when the page was sort of starting in the early days, in particular, and again, the timing of this is very apt, the performance of the 2017 World Baseball Classic, the Team Israel, which was just amazing, the way they performed. You know, because it was very interesting that it was the first time they qualified, and they missed out 4 years earlier in 2013 when they lost in extra innings to a Spanish home run. So first of all, they had to rebound from the disappointment of that. They got to 2017. I was like, they made it. And then everyone was like making jokes. Oh, Israeli baseball team, you know, ha, ha, ha. You know, what a joke. And then it was interesting because when they started to win and do well, they didn't say like, oh, okay, we're going to like appreciate them. They just found a different angle to target their criticism. So it was like, oh, well, they're not Israeli, really. They're just American. And, you know, and then when that didn't work and they kept on winning, they were like, yeah, but well, like, people in Israel don't really care about it. So like, what does it matter anyway? But the point was that it was remarkable in that many of these guys were at the end of their career and were sort of cynical with life and cynical with baseball. You know, baseball is an interesting sport with the minor leagues, and how if you don't you're not playing at the top level, you're sort of in this underbelly where you could be playing all over America for like in very sort of difficult conditions. And it's very easy to sort of lose your innocence and your love of the game. And plus, to be honest, like, a lot of them, their Judaism wasn't sort of front and center for them. But like, it was very interesting. And there's been a couple of documentaries about them. I think the first one was called Coming Home. It was a nice name. And then I think the second one, when they made the Olympics, was Going for Gold. But with the first one, they tapped into something. And I think by representing Israel, they sort of became appreciated what that meant, their heritage, like what it meant to be Jewish, and sort of this incredible present that they sort of discovered later in life with all these guys at once. And it also somehow contributed to their on-field, like the sum of the parts were like a million times greater than it should have been. And they just played out of their skin. They beat Cuba. They beat the Dutch. It was just amazing. And I remember that at the time, that this was something that had like nothing to do with sport. It was like they were playing a sport, but like the story there was about changing their life, changing their perspective, and sort of their vehicle was sport. And because of their performance there, they basically put the sport here on the map. And a few years later, they became one of the teams. There was only like, to get into the Olympics, it's only 6 teams in baseball. So with the host who automatically makes it, you're only 5 teams qualifying. And then they made it, which again was remarkable.
You touched upon, like, you know, the criticism, oh, you know, they're American athletes playing for Israel, you know, all these like excuses and stuff. Have you seen a lot of that more so after 10/7 when covering Israeli athletes? Have you been seeing more support or more hate now that you are highlighting Israeli athletes, especially post 10/7?
Right. So that's a great question. So I mean, the reality is that with the amount of engagement we get on the post, it's very difficult to be on top of all the comments and whatnot. And for a while, we're sort of like blocking visitors from certain countries. And the thing that sort of I've set on is like now only followers can sort of comment. It was interesting though, when I relaxed that on Instagram, it was sort of like instantaneous. Somehow
Yep.
they just knew the comments that started coming. I don't know if they were like
We have to
the
remember
barbarians.
too that they're actually bots. So I don't know if you guys saw this recent study. There was a recent study done that measured like where people are coming from, and the half of all of the interactions you're having on
Right.
social media are from bot farms.
So they must have received some notification that like
Yep.
the drawbridge has been opened, like you can come in now. No, it's interesting because obviously, you know, every country does it. You know, speaking of baseball, like the Dutch side features a lot of the majority of their players are from Aruba and Curacao, which is literally thousands of miles away from mainland Netherlands. And, you know,
Yeah.
they are actually, I want to say the C word, Dutch colonies that no one has a problem with. You know, we saw
And
in
I've
the
been to
summer.
Aruba.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of efforts were made in the summer to try and kick Israel out of the UEFA, kick Israel out of the Olympics. You know, people say Russia's banned, why not Israel? But like, it's like saying I've got a cauliflower here. Is that like a banana? Like the two have got absolutely nothing to do with each other. They just want to equate it. And you know, there were a couple of incidences where it was really bad. So the most infamous one was basically the Tour of Spain. So similar to the Tour of France, there's the cycling Tour of Spain, and they cycle around the countryside in Spain. And basically there was this rent-a-crowd of people who were like holding the cyclists hostage. They were sitting in the middle of the street, causing harm to all the other cyclists, and basically they couldn't finish it because of these protesters. And basically, once it finished, they were like, "Well, this can't go on anymore. So you can't call yourself Team Israel anymore." So that was really bad. There was a case where we compete in the Canada Cup, and so we send softball teams to Canada to play softball, and they're out in the middle of Canada, like, you know, they've got different teams, and maybe it was like a under 16 team playing, and like they're like in the middle of nowhere, Canada, and you've got like people behind the outfield, like with the flags, shouting out genocide at like teenage girls. It's like, what's happening in your life that you would actually do this? So, I mean, that was
what I'm hearing from you, though, I will say this is that on all these different sporting events, our haters have come out. They've tried to take us down. What are your thoughts on what can we learn from sport to make us stronger?
That's a great question. What I would say is that, you know, I've said this for a while, that and with no disrespect to any other country, for our athletes to represent Israel is not the same as for any other athlete to represent their country, right? If I'm representing Peru or I'm representing Sweden, you know, obviously I'm an elite athlete in my respective field, that I've achieved sort of the ability to be picked and compete in international competition. That's fine. I'm not diminishing that at all. But the athlete from Sweden doesn't have to deal with like an existential crisis, like how did Sweden even come to be that I'm representing it? And did anyone want Sweden to go away so that I couldn't represent? No one thinks about that. There's always like, it doesn't even enter their thought that like there wouldn't be a Sweden, right? So, but for Israel, it's like, well, what about my family? Like, was my family destroyed in the Shoah? And how did I get to Israel? And how am I even here? And then how is Israel even here? So they're thinking about all these things, you know, and you know, the quote from Tal Brody that we're on the map and we're never going to be off the map, not just sport, but everything, that resonates more than it did, today than it did then, right? That we're here,
Yep.
and just the fact that we're there, and when they show the little graphic of the flags of all the athletes that are competing, then when you see the blue and white, that means something. It means something to us, and it means something to the haters, right? And so, no one thinks that about any other flag, and so it really is different.
It's also interesting too, as I said, I'm a huge figure skating fan. And I remember years ago, there was a pairs team from North Korea. And I remember how respectful the audience and the commentators were, and really making the effort to say that these people are separate from the North Korean government. And I always remembered that, but that same common courtesy for Israel is just is totally disregarded. I'm very curious to know what your stance is on what the Swiss commentator had said when AJ Edelman was going down the 2-man bobsled. Because again, Israel is under such heavy scrutiny versus other countries. And as I said, North Korean athletes did not get this level of pressure or scrutiny. China, which we know has concentration camps, no one has said anything. It's just the level of scrutiny is just, the double standard is just very hypocritical.
Yeah.
So again, what's your take on the Swiss?
So it's not just that, it's a complete lack of history, a complete lack of everything. Like I said before with the Dutch baseballers, right? It's not only did they not even bat an eyelid, they don't even know what they don't know, right? And so with these other things, they're completely ignorant, but yet they're very happy to sort of swallow whatever half-truths and half-lies and misinformation and smear campaign there is about Israel and Israeli athletes. Because before I want to get to your question, I just want to say the fact that, I was touched on the fact that the baseball team was American. But let's say it was just like the catcher was American and the first baseman was like a Jew from Venezuela, and the second baseman was like a Jew from South Africa, and the third baseman was a Jew from Canada, so on and so forth. Not only is that not a problem, that is actually the perfect representation of the melting pot that Israel is, right? We have Jews from all over the world. They want to come here. They want to represent their country. The fact that anyone would have a problem with that, why? And then specifically onto your question, so the thing is about the page that we don't get into the controversy, and it's one of the things about the media is that they won't care about a women's basketball match, and they're not going to report on it. They won't even acknowledge its existence. But let's say, Israel was playing, I don't know, Austria, and one of the Austrian players did something during the anthem or turned her back or did something else, then it would make news, right? So they couldn't care about it as a sporting contest. But when controversy comes and it's like clickbait, and with the way that the world is now, that anything, they're looking for the headline that people can click on. They just love that stuff. And so
it sounds like what you're saying is basically the world will take the worst of us and definitely put it out there. What I'd like to know is, in your experience, how have you seen sport really unite both us and our supporters around the world and build a bridge?
So I touched on the softball before. So when the Israelis played the New Zealand team, the New Zealand team actually did a haka song, this song of peace for them. So I remember that was just beautiful. There's been other instances where crowds, and again, it doesn't get that much reported because again, people don't want to hear the good stuff about us. They just want to hear there was a brawl after a soccer match in Amsterdam, and there was this and there was that. But there are these beautiful stories, because I think also that's the truth. And there's also something I want to share, like you asked about like the bad stuff. So last year there was this like basically anti-Israel march across the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So it was like, I don't know if you remember, it was like raining, it was a rainy Sunday, and they got like 100,000 people to walk across the bridge. And they had photos of like the Ayatollah and all this and genocide, all that. And so that was obviously very distressing and very upsetting. But then like 4 weeks after or something like that, after that was actually the Sydney Marathon. And it was actually the first time that the Sydney Marathon had been given this like international standard, sort of the same as like the London Marathon, Chicago, Boston, etc. So it had all these runners from all over the world. And you actually had people, Israeli or Jewish, like running with the Israeli flag or a yellow ribbon. And basically what I said was that they were like purifying the bridge after what had happened before with the darkness. They were like sort of taking it to the mikveh, so to speak, giving it light just to convert it from what was like this vessel of darkness into something that could be uplifted. So that was also something that was very nice. And also there's been a lot of stories of regular people using sport to help process their trauma and their PTSD from October 7th. Do you want to hear some examples?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
Okay, so there have been running groups that specifically go to places around Israel, like down in the south in the Otef where people were killed. So they go and they actually run on these places, and similar to October, like I said about the Harbour Bridge, try and reclaim it for life from death.
That sounds incredibly intense. Because if you're thinking about it, the first thought I thought is all the Jews that were running away from Hamas. And then you're going to, as a Jew in Israel, choose to go jogging with a group, of course. That can be both healing in a way and also taking back the power and saying, no, we're not going to allow you on our land to traumatize us permanently.
There was a woman here in Renana whose son was a soldier who died, and she was an open water swimmer. So the open water swimmers like go out in the ocean and they swim like far distances. So anyhow, it was like last year she swam the open swim around the Hudson, where it's like under 7 bridges. So she did that, and afterwards she had like a flag with her son's picture on it. So I posted about that. There's been Jewish running groups that have formed. The most famous is like the Nice Jewish Runners that are like headquartered in New York, but chapters have opened up all over the world. After the shooting in Bondi, they were like, okay, we're starting one in Sydney, and days later they formed a chapter, and then again they ran past Bondi in a similar way. And I think people, they do whatever they can to sort of help them get by in their day. And, sport is a great way to do that. And so, that's sort of been another interesting aspect of it.
So is there any athletes that we should be looking out for in the next couple of years? Like, are there any particular sports events we should be looking out for, or teams? Like, you have the inside scoop. Who should we keep an eye out for?
So we got the World Baseball Classic is happening in March in a couple of weeks. So Israel will be playing in Miami, and they're in a group with 4 other teams. Now, it's we've been touching on the fact that whenever Israel turns up, it makes everything a bit of a circus, because of Israel. So what's very interesting this time around is that Israel's first game is against Venezuela. So that's
great.
so that's going to be a bit crazy. So it's not actually Venezuela's first match. So Venezuela plays the day before, but then Israel plays the next day against Venezuela. So expect that to become a circus. And then the other 3
all the more conspiracy theories coming up. Okay.
I know.
And then Dominican Republic, Holland, and Nicaragua are the other 3 teams. Like Israel competing in like with the football teams and the basketball teams. Also now we're like 2 years away from LA-ish, so it's
Yeah.
getting close all the time, and like qualifying for sports will sort of begin. And with sports that not just baseball, but lacrosse is in the Olympics for the first time, flag football's in the Olympics for the first time, and teams, obviously Israel with a very strong, again, American flavor. They will be attempting to qualify, which will obviously be incredible for any of those teams to make it. This isn't strictly a sport, but I always cover it, and that's the Eurovision. So that's happening in May in Vienna, because Austria won last year, and it's very interesting that Israel came second. Now, what was happening was that the juries were voting against Israel, and I think also they were colluding because they didn't want to split the vote, because they knew Israel would get the very strong public vote, but they didn't like that, so they actually have changed the voting this year, and I think they've reduced the amount of public vote.
Oh, really?
But Israel again has a great song, and I think we've placed third and second like the last 2 years, so we'll see how it goes this year.
You can keep us down, baby. All right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I read about you actually so I'm making Aliyah. And one thing I read about you, since you live in Jerusalem, you're Shomer Shabbat. I read that every single Shabbat, you actually make the walk down to the Kotel to pray at the Kotel. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so it actually started 5 years ago when I had a cousin here, and up until that point, it was actually quite embarrassing how many times I'd been to the Kotel in like 15 years. You could like count it on two hands. The thing is about the Kotel during the week, there's traffic, there's like your schedule, you're tired, like you got to park and then walk down there, and you get down there and it's like just busy, and it's very hard to get in a very good frame of mind. And so when she said like let's go on a Shabbat, I was like it's far, but we walked, it was 50 minutes, and that's the thing, like on a Shabbat, you don't have anywhere else to go, anything else to do. So it really doesn't matter. But it actually was a nice walk, and we got down there, and I was just, for want of a better word, inspired. So I started, going once a month, and then now I go every week. And also at that stage, my son was like 3, and I would push him in the buggy. Now he's 9, and when he sort of doesn't come all the time now, but when he comes, he walks, sometimes kicking and screaming. But the thing is that you just go there and you relax, and our minyan's quite quick. It's like 80 minutes, and you've got 80 minutes there to relax and sit. And sometimes you feel like you're talking to a wall, but it really is just inspiring and really so special, and a privilege, a privilege to be here, a privilege to have the opportunity to go there. And I think also that hopefully when he grows up and he has kids, and he realizes how special it is, then it's something really to sort of be passed down. So I never take it for granted, and it really is a blessing and truly the highlight of the week.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
I think that's beautiful. This is a little off topic of the wall. I would love your take. Is it true that the Lakers are going to be playing in Tel Aviv? Because that's huge if the NBA is actually going to be playing in Israel.
And who are they going to be playing against?
I don't know. I haven't heard it for that, but I thought
could have sworn I saw something on there.
I thought they came to Israel in the early 90s.
Lakers to play Tel Aviv. I could have sworn
that would track for when I was about 12 years old, and I had my first Lakers jacket. So there we go.
There was a tweet claiming the LA Lakers would face the New York Knicks in Tel Aviv, but that seems to have been false. Darn it, which would have been amazing because I would have would have loved that representation. But
So
before
sorry, I had it the wrong way
before we
around.
go,
Maccabi,
sorry to
Maccabi Tel
interrupt. We
Aviv.
do have. I have a question.
Okay, what's the question?
Is coming to the U.S. to play?
No, I was saying my memory was the wrong way around. Maccabi Tel Aviv played the Lakers in the early 90s in LA.
I'm sorry. I was running to something else. Would you talk on record about what is actually happening? Oh, okay.
You cut out. Talk on record about what?
To quickly just touch upon what exactly happened with the bobsled team. We do have a question about that if you're willing to share your expertise.
Right. Yeah. So basically they wanted to the bobsled teams is
about the bobsled.
Yes. So the bobsled team is
the four-man bobsled.
Yeah, it consists of four
am I cutting
riders. No, yeah, I got it. 4 riders and an alternate, and the alternate can only play a part if there is a injury. And so basically, they wanted to try and give the alternate an opportunity to be part of the Olympic experience, given that their final finishing place wasn't going to be affected by what happened today, one way or another. So in terms of the integrity of the competition, that wasn't in jeopardy at all. But then basically the details of this got out, and then it became a problem, and that's it really. So
yeah, I think a lot of us saw and we're like, what was going on? Because we're going to get blamed for something bad. And so we've all been anticipating the worst. So thank you for explaining it a little bit. And then I had just one last question before we let you go. Where can folks find more about Follow Team Israel? What platforms are you on?
So we're on Facebook and on Instagram.
Wonderful.
Facebook.com, Follow Team Israel, Instagram.com, Follow Team Israel.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on Am Yisrael Thrive today. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, David.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. And maybe we should do a follow-up in the summer with the Maccabea.
Oh, we would love to. Thank you for suggesting that. I'm sure all our guests would love that too. All right. Have a great day. All right, Jen, are you still there? I think Jen may be experiencing some technical difficulties right now.
I think.
Are you here?
Yes.
Hello?
Shana, put that in the calendar.
Wonderful. Well,
thank
you guys. I think we're having some time delay.
Well,
thank you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Hello? No, hello. I froze.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today on Am Yisrael Thrive.
Yep, I think I froze. I think we're having some issues with that.
So I hope everyone out there has a wonderful rest of your week. We will see you next week on Am Yisrael Thrive. Have a great day.